Hello, and welcome to SG Squared. Steve Gladen, the global pastor of small groups from Saddleback Church, pulls from his over 25 years of experience to encourage and equip listeners like you to lead small group ministries. So let's listen and learn together.
Welcome to SG Squared. Steve Gladen on small groups. Derek Olson here with the main man of the hour, the man whose very initials stand for small groups, Steve Gladen. Steve, how are you, my friend?
Derek, super great to be together, and look forward to this show. I mean, it may have to get broken up a little bit, but man, we got the mailbag of all mailbags that we're looking forward to breaking into. So it's pretty exciting and pretty fun.
Yeah, stay tuned, everyone. We are going to dive into a plethora
Ooh.
of mailbag questions. These are the top small group questions people are asking, and plethora. Steve, what movie does that come from? A good old 80s movie, Plethora.
Plethora. Maybe I was reading my Bible too much and I don't know, or
Three Amigos, right?
oh my God.
A plethora.
Oh man, that'd be a good video clip just to slice in here if we had the great production team around us.
So, Steve, before we jump into this epic mailbag of mailbags, I mean, Father of the Bride, talking about movies, you lived out that infamous movie, Father of the Bride, just a few months ago. Your only precious daughter got married. How are you doing, my friend?
Well, like Father of the Bride, but the great thing is I didn't go to prison, so that was a major win and everything. But it was priceless. I mean, anyone who's married off their daughter understands it, and it was crazy, and it was full of tears, full of laughter, full of everything. I mean, Lisa and I wish we could relive it over and over and over again, and did got through the speech, and then the father daughter dance that we did, butterfly kisses. That's what that song came out when Erica was born, and man, it just broke us both up and all that. Now the great thing is that they had a live band for the reception, and what was great was they edited the song from 4 minutes to 2 minutes. So the guy who can't dance, I was super grateful of that. So it is priceless. It was good. So it was,
So wait, did you say you guys were dancing to the song Butterfly Kisses?
yeah, it was
Were
great.
you just like sobbing your eyeballs out?
Yeah, it was,
Wow.
I can't think about it too much because I'll start
Right,
crying,
right. Okay,
crying
well,
again.
to give you to change the mood here, I'm picturing the Father of the Bride movie. If you guys haven't seen that movie, you got to see it, a 90s classic
Yeah.
with Steve Martin. But one of my favorite scenes in that movie was when he's basically going insane and he finds himself at the grocery store and he's removing hot dog buns out of the bag.
I felt like that many times, going, why do the hot dog company and the bun company get together to mess us up? And we paid way too much. I mean, you know, this is the negative side of capitalism. When you're on the receiving side of them going supply and demand, it was painful. It was painful.
Your pocketbook's probably glad that that whole wedding experience is over, huh?
Well, Lisa and I are going to be moving in with you guys, so we appreciate, you and Julie just opening up your home and just saying no problem whatsoever.
Love it.
Hey,
Oh,
let fair turn now. I get it. So I hear through the grapevine, brother, that you are now a music teacher on the side volunteering. Give me the scoop on that piece.
man, the things you get talked into, right? Or I should say the things you do for your kids.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, so
true.
my daughter started her second year at a private school in town, and she's loving it. And they've been trying to fill a position of a music teacher, which is like a paid position. And I guess they couldn't, find somebody, or they had someone and then lost them. And so next thing I know, I'm being recruited. They're asking me, Mr. Olson, would you consider teaching the kids music? And
Oh,
so I had a meeting, kind of found out what this was about, and I said, look, if I'm going to do it, it's got to be fun, and it can't just be using some stale curriculum. And we'll teach the kids some theory, but I got to also make it fun just so that I'm having fun. And they're like, okay, you're hired. And so, but I'm doing it volunteer. But anyway, yesterday was my first day teaching K through sixth grade music. I had to do it 3 times. First to a bunch of kindergartners, and then first through third and fourth through sixth. And let's just say it was fun, but I underestimated the mayhem of giving that many kids recorders.
Oh my goodness. How I remember my daughter playing the recorder, my son playing the recorder, and I'm sure there are a bunch of parents who hate you as much as I hated that teacher. But did you ever think when you were a worship leader that someday your audience would be K through 6 going, teach me how to worship?
Right? No, it's crazy. Yeah, and I'm also having glimpses of like that School of Rock movie where like I'm this old fat guy and I'm trying to teach the next generation. But it was fun, and hopefully they don't run me out of town too fast.
Well, you got two great throwback movies that our listeners can go watch, Schoolhouse Rock and Father of the
Father the
Bride.
Bride.
Oh my gosh, crazy. Well, let's jump into a mailbag. We do have a lot that came from the 2024 lobby, if I remember right. And a bunch of questions came in that we couldn't answer at the lobby. And so Derek and I decided to kind of jump in. There are a lot of questions that you guys submitted. It's going to have to be broken up into multiple shows, but it'll be fun for you to be able to check it out and just listen to it. However we break this up, each episode will have the questions in the show notes, so you can kind of know what you're getting into as you open it up and listen to it. So it should be fun, though. It's going to be fun. Derek and I are going to kind of play off of each other and kind of go back and forth and see what kind of wisdom we can shake out of both of our heads.
Yeah, and so real quick question, for people that might not know what the lobby is, you want to give that just a quick plug?
Yeah, especially since in 2025 it's going to move from, generally we have a February of every year. It's a networking event. We bring because the ranch is limited, we bring about 120 small group point people together to network, get ideas, share concepts. Yeah, in the evenings we usually bring speakers in who kind of take us to places that we wouldn't naturally go to as small group point people, just to get us thinking and everything. But you can come solo, you can come with a team, you can come however you like. But the great thing is that it's a great time to meet other small group point people from across the United States. And generally, we have a couple international people who fly in for it. This particular year coming up, as we're filming this in 2025 next year, it'll be in May, not in February. So you can go to smallgroupnetwork.com, kind of look up the lobby under our events. And it is really one of the most fun events that I enjoy personally, because we kind of hardwire in a bunch of downtime so that you can kind of pair up with people that you have met throughout the lobby to take it further. Where the name came from was that I ended up going to a lot of conferences throughout my years, many years, as you can, if you're watching on video, you can tell. But I've gone to a lot of, throughout the years, going to conferences. I'd find myself spending a lot of time out in the lobby. Not that the plenaries weren't great, but I knew I could listen to the plenaries anytime and get the content, post the conference if I wanted to. But what I couldn't get was the time that we spent in the lobby, meeting people and talking to people, find out what's working in their church and just meeting new friends. And so thus the lobby came out. And so it's been something we've done, 15 years and counting, and still moving ahead. So it's sold out every year. So sorry for those of you that couldn't come last year. We will try to fit as many people as we can, but because of group dynamics, we really try to limit it to that 120 mark. So, but it's a fun time spending time in Orange County. Derek, maybe in the show notes, you could show up your clip of one of the lobbies where you had your drone footage. You're just a master of all kinds of traits. If you don't know, Derek also has a couple shows on Instagram that you should check out on ancient pyramids and ancient writings and stuff like that. What's the Instagram channel, real quick?
Stargate Voyager is the Instagram handle. If you want to go down the weird history rabbit holes, check me
Yeah.
out.
So we got to throw that in the link. We'll throw that in the link. We'll also, if you can dig up the drone footage of the lobby, throw that in there. It'd be some free to get a little snapshot, because the video clip that Derek did, it'll communicate far more than I can on the beauty of what the lobby is all about.
Yeah, having been there several times, what a great event. It's in one of the most beautiful settings. It's
Mhm.
incredible campus. In the sunshine, lots of downtime, like you said, to go to the ocean, see the beach. But then you're learning from premier small group ministry leaders, some of the top in the nation. But like you said, the best part is the lobby, what you would call just the lobby, the in between times where you're networking and you're meeting all these other small group ministry leaders from around the nation and stealing all their best ideas. What's not to like? So go to
I do.
smallgroupnetwork.com and sign up.
Yeah, spellgroupnetwork.com. Sorry to cut you off there, my friend.
So we got this huge mailbag. So I'm thinking I'll ask you the question, Steve. You can answer, share from your vast 25 plus years of experience, and then I might chime in with a little extra nugget. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds super. Let's jump into it.
Okay, here are the top mailbag questions, and there's so many of them. We're probably going to break this up into a couple, maybe 2 or 3 episodes. But number one, Steve, the question is, drumroll please.
Mm.
What advice would you give to someone brand new to vocational ministry?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things when you're new to ministry that you got to understand, and one that is, it is all about relationships. It's relationships, 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 and the more you can spend time getting to know people, it is the economy of getting things done in the church world. And if you don't enjoy kind of getting to know people, then that is going to be a tough route for you. But specifically in the small group ministry, is that one of the things I would suggest that you do is you've got to network with other people. We were just talking about it in the lobby, but also just networking with other churches in your community. I am shocked that, gosh, since 85, I've been delving into the small group ministry world. And it's crazy that small group point people work about building community, and we tend to be some of the most isolated people. And I can't tell you how many small group point people I've talked to that are not networking with the churches in their area. They don't even know the churches in their area. And I would just encourage you, if you're new in that, spend time, call churches up, look on their website, discover, who's handling groups, and just say, can I get a cup of coffee with you? Rarely, even when I have people ping me locally, when they say, hey, can you get a cup of coffee? I'll make room for that, because all of us who have been in the ministry for a long time, no matter how many decades, we remember what that was like, and we always want to give back to the other people. So I'd encourage you, on smallgroupnetwork.com, we have circles that you can join. If you can't find one in your area, start one and just, put it out there. There's lots of information on the smallgroupnetwork.com page on how to do that under circles. So I'd encourage you to network. I'd also, a thing off the top of my head would be, know your playbook. Get to understand, what is it that is going to be your playbook. You got to know your end in mind. You got to know the pathway to get to the end in mind. You got to know the head guardrail and the heart guardrail that kind of encompass leader training and curriculum pathways and the tools you're going to develop. And in the heart guardrail, you got to understand who are the people that you're kind of trying to minister to, and what kind of data are you trying to keep, and then how are you going to get people on this pathway. I mean, I could talk for hours just on the structure of a small group ministry, but you've got to that will become your playbook, and so you've got to understand where that's at. And then another thing that I probably didn't do enough of is ask people questions. And the beauty of email, the beauty of texting, the beauty of social media to DM people, you have the ability to talk to people all around the globe and just, asking them some great questions. So just don't go it alone. Don't try to figure it out yourself. I've been in small group ministry way too long. There's some things that are so common to small group ministry. Once you figure out how your church defines a disciple, everything else is pretty much the same. And so don't stumble through all that solo.
You said so many great things there, Steve. That's a crazy factoid about small group point people being some of the loneliest ministry leaders around. That is crazy again when you consider the nature of what we do as small group point people.
It,
But
it,
go ahead.
it is funny, man. Just even on our Facebook group, I mean, we have tens of thousands of people that are on it, but a lot of, and we see the analytics. We know that you're looking at it, but you just tend not to participate in it. So it's,
Yeah, I would add
each
to
its
what you
own.
said.
Yeah.
I would encourage people new to vocational ministry. Yeah, pace yourself,
That's good.
be in it for the long haul. I mean, so much of ministry seems like it's event driven, and that's awesome. But ultimately, don't go it alone, like Steve said. Ask questions and just care for people. I think about Chick-fil-A and the amazing customer service they
Mm,
offer, and that sets them apart to most other fast food chains you go to. And because you feel like they care about you. And so, again, how much more as ministry leaders should we care about the people that we're shepherding? So that's my one piece of advice: is care about people, love them. That's more important than all the busy stuff
yeah.
you could do. That's what they're going to remember as, man, Pastor blank or so and so leader, man, they really care for me, they remembered my name.
Yeah, it is such a balance on balancing care and balancing working the system. It's people and processes, and people always have to win. So that's a good thing. As I'm thinking about that too, when I was talking about questions, I wrote a book called "Planning Small Groups with Purpose," and in that there's 20 questions that you can ask yourself, or go take those questions and ask others those questions. So
So that was number one. We survived. Okay. On the mailbag question number two, what is key to moving from good and sorry, let me do that again. What is key to moving from good and high participation to great and highly effective in your groups?
yeah. Yeah, when I saw that question come across, I was like going, wow, good question for how do you move from good to great? I think there's a book on good to great, but we'll go with that. A few things I would go through. One would be consistency. We always say the Bible's made up in a family system. And the great thing about that is that the church, the more consistency you get, you see that a lot when the senior pastor changes every few years. There's almost a new playbook that comes in with the new person. The more consistency you can help bring to your church's system, that they can build upon it builds the stability that they need. Another thing that would take you from good to great is the buy-in with the senior pastor, the senior leader, the lead pastor, the bishop, whatever the title they hold, but who's ever the senior leader of your church, the more buy-in you can get with them, the better off you're going to move from good to great. Because when the stage isn't involved in it, then it just helps build that culture of what you're trying to do. It's interesting that when Rick started moving from preaching about groups to, in many sermons throughout the year, he would talk about his small group, and him talking about his small group was doing more than that aspect of it. Um, Another thing I was thinking of is training. A lot of times we don't have a clear training pathway that gets your leaders to maximize who they are and developing the people in their groups. And that would be a big piece of it. And then I would say another thing is getting your pool of people, because a lot of times when churches are good in small groups, they don't have a pipeline that's feeding them. And there's all kinds of things you can read about a church-wide campaign. I wrote about it in my first book. But I would encourage you to do a church-wide campaign because it kind of helps defibrillate your church into from children, students, and youth permeating the culture of small group ministry. So it'd be a great thing. Derek, any ads you have on that? You've been in the trenches like myself when you had to take it up a notch or two from good to great.
Yeah, I would say the greatest little nugget I could offer, and you already kind of said it, Steve, was senior leadership buy-in.
Mm,
Having worked at Saddleback and a couple of churches that had a lead pastor that was all into groups or really passionate about them, and then having worked at churches that had a senior pastor or leader that wanted lots of groups but wasn't necessarily championing them from the stage
mhm.
or in one themselves. To
Yeah,
me, that was one of
that's a
the
big
key
piece.
ingredients of this good to great participation was getting that senior leadership buy-in to where they're talking about groups often from the stage and talking about their group. To me, that's the next level that really takes it to great.
Yeah, well, we'll talk a lot about, building that relationship with your senior leader because you're right, Derek. It really it probably is the number one key that you're bringing up there. So I think that's a good piece.
All right, on to number three. How do you navigate creating a small group culture if senior leadership isn't on board?
Oh, well, let's address it now. um, it's hard. Let me be upfront with you. If you don't have a strong piece of tenacity in your fiber, then you might be a little bit harder than you think. But it's hard, but it's not impossible. Because a lot of times your senior leader is so involved in trying to get the weekend coin and trying to build the church that they haven't spent time thinking about groups. And so most times it's not that they go, oh man, I don't want small groups. I hate small groups. Why would we do small groups and things like that? But a lot of times is they don't know what they don't know. But so part of it, what I'd encourage you to do is help move them relationally. One of the things is help them see you as a friend, not a foe. Many times I've seen a lot of small group point people, they try to drive their agenda so much, they almost feel the senior leadership feels they're in competition with you. And what you got to do is, what I tell a lot of people is, there's a book called Love Languages, and it talks about in a personal relationship with a spouse or your kids or someone you're dating. You get to know their love language. I know my wife's love language. Derek knows Julie's love language. And you get to know their love language because you want to show them the right affection for them. And in the same way, I find a lot of people, we're so busy driving our agenda, we don't know the love language of our senior leader. And what can happen is when you don't know that and you don't try to build a relationship with them, it's like they're talking Italian, you're talking English, and you'll just never connect. And so I would encourage you to find out. I remember with Rick when I first came on, he was really driven by our class system, which is our cognitive process, kind of helps people discover the DNA in our church. And he loved baptisms. Groups weren't on his radar. He was still building the church. The church was young enough that he was still building it. And so I worked really hard on working those two angles to earn the relational credits that groups would be important for him. And, it moved from that place where he was on board talking about it, preaching about fellowship every once in a while, but still trying to figure pieces out, that we were able to take it a lot further. Um, but the other thing too is spend time with your senior leader. Find out, what was their journey? What's their story about getting into ministry? What's their story about the church? Where do they want to take the church? Where do they want to see the church? And so often we don't want to bother them or do anything like that. I just encourage you. before you start pushing the small group ministry further in your church, start to get to know the senior leader a little bit better personally, and you'll get a lot further down the road. So it kind of goes back to Derek's thing. The very first question, you're in it for the long haul. And so don't try to short circuit it, but try to build it. It's kind of like, when you're trying to raise your kids, you're in it for the long haul. So you don't have to get everything right away in the first year or two.
So good. One thing I would add is, when you can, again, like Steve said, be relational with your senior leader, get to know their love languages. Obviously, most senior pastors and leaders are so busy. They've got so many hats they're wearing. They've got so much pressure to grow often, and they want to see the weekend service growing. So I think one of the secrets is, how can you show them that small group ministry, a thriving small group ministry, is complementing the weekend services?
Mhm.
And so when they start to see that it does, they get more excited about small groups. And the greatest example I can give is a couple of churches when I cast the vision to the senior leader that we needed to have our small group campaign launch on a weekend. And we're going to pair it now with the weekend services for 6 to 8 weeks. When he saw how that grew the weekend service, especially at that small group launch, his eyes got that big.
Yeah.
And he was getting really excited about small groups because it was growing the weekend. And he got to teach this series. And so he was still getting to lead this. So that's one little thing to consider.
No, that's good, man. Good.
All right. So that was 3. Let's jump to number 4. How to encourage attendance after a busy workday.
I'm assuming this is the small
Is
group
that small group
leader.
attendance?
Yeah, I think that's where this question is going. I'm gonna go. Let's assume that's where it's going, and we'll go with that. Yeah, you hear it all the time. Busyness. We're too busy to be in a group. We're too busy to do something. But I really don't think. I try to encourage you to change your paradigm. The issue is not busyness. A lot of times the issue is relevance, and because depending on what your culture is, but Derek and I are both college football nuts. And as somebody gave us free tickets to our favorite college football team, um, Washington Huskies or the Ohio State Buckeyes, then, we would make time for it because it's relevant, something we want to do, or we got, free, weekend away for us and our wives. We would make that a priority. And so a lot of times the question is what makes groups relevant for people? And a lot of times it's content. And I know you can get content anywhere, but when content is relevant, it's like, and this is where titling helps people understand what it is, but we have ones that deal with spiritual warfare, and it's called the hidden war. Or for young families, if you have one that is about how to raise your kids without raising your blood pressure, or we have one for teens, how to raise a G-rated kid in an X-rated world, or how to find your purpose in life. There's a lot of different curriculums, but when the content is relevant, then that can help drive relationships. People come for the content, they stay for the community. And so that would be one thing that would kind of help them make that a priority. The other thing too is it's how you form your groups. Um, we choose to use existing friendship networks. So we always say if you have 2 friends, you can start a group. And I know somewhere throughout the episode, if it's not this one, it'll be the next one. If not the next one, or how many parts this is. But we do. We start our groups via existing friendships because you've obviously made time for them. They're a priority because they're your friends. And so what we try to do is take existing friendships who already have carved out time and help build purpose into those groups. The reason why my book is called, Small Groups with Purpose, is we're trying to take small groupings of people and their existing friends and help build God's purposes in them. Because one of the inherent um, relevant issues in people is spiritual formation. They're trying, at the fall of being kind, there was a vacuum in us that is driving us to understand there's a spiritual void in our lives. And that's why it's so important to help them fill that spiritual void in small groups. And how are you doing that? And through spiritual formation, because that's the thing that will help trigger them to happiness and purpose and understanding why they're on this earth. So those would be a couple things. If that was the correct question to answer, that's where I'd go.
Yeah, I think you made the key point there is if it's relevant, right? And
Yeah.
who's not going to want to go every week or every other week to a small group with a group of friends in an inclusive, warm environment, eating great food, maybe playing some games, and then, growing together in their faith and finding support. I think everybody's looking for that, right?
Hmm.
And the key question is, are we making it relevant? And I think, like you said, Steve, if we're doing, if we're putting the small groups together in a wise way, like this friend strategy, everybody wants that. Everybody's looking for that, and we've got what the world can offer, right? So,
Yeah, there's a high degree also of people who may not have a friend, and you can help connect them in a centralized fashion on
yep.
campus groups so they can get to know some people. But the vast majority of your communities may already know who they're with, and so you're just maximizing time that they already spend with their friends.
And I like what Saddleback used to do. It was so easy to start a group, and I know we'll talk more about this later. It was basically, hey, grab two or three friends,
Hmm.
grab this curriculum that we just made for you that's, let's say 6 weeks long, and do it for 6 weeks together. So you made it so easy, right? It was grab the curriculum, and then obviously you gave them some little pointers on how to lead a group,
Hmm.
but simple stuff like that. All right, that was number 4. Hopefully we answered your question. Now, on to number 5. How do you best prioritize time and energy with ministry friends?
Okay, so I'm going to assume this is the small group point person trying to balance his ministry people on staff or in other ministries of the church with um, trying to get his priorities down. Um, I think one of the things I would say off the bat is that uh, friendships, relationships throughout your church, partnerships inside your church, uh, they're never a waste of time. They will always return a yield for you somewhere down the road. One of the things I've always valued at Saddleback is that I always try to get to know as many of the staff as I can. And I know a lot of our churches that are listening to this, you don't have a ton of staff, but the point is key volunteers, key staff, the more you get to know them, regardless of whether they're helping in groups ministry or not, that will always return well. Now, how do you balance that with what you're trying to do in your day job? Part of that is focus and priorities. And a lot of times you got to look at your work week and you've got to carve things out, blocks of times. There's many times in my calendar that I block. And because my kids are now out of the home, I work from home. But when my kids were in the home or, things were, the kids were younger, then I would go to a coffee shop or something. But take chunks of time to block out for your major priorities. I would also say take time to also make sure that you understand you're the tip of the spear for small group ministry at your church. You have to stay focused. And so this is where your planning is going to be super important because you've got to plan what's ahead for your small group ministry. Nobody else is thinking about it but you. You can pull people in to help you think about it, but you've got to be that tip of the spear. So I would value all relationships, but there comes a time where you got to prioritize and you got to focus on things you have to do. And so block that time in your calendar so that you can be able to get away and to map that out. Derek, you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, just maybe one. I remember being youth pastor in Sacramento way back in the day. And
You're not that old. I get to say way back in the day. You
I had
don't.
some I had some great guys on staff with me, and I remember one guy who was our Hispanic Hispanic pastor for the Hispanic services. His name was Walter. Walter, for some reason, if you're listening, you're still the man. But Walter was an incredible leader, older than me, had a wealth of experience, and he was very relational. Well, I'm kind of more of a high strung person. I got a checklist and I'm trying to get all this done. And if I don't, I start feeling pressure. And back then, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? I just didn't know what we're saying now. Just balance it, but relationships always come first.
Yeah.
And anyway, I remember him stopping me saying, "Man, you need to put down your to-do list and uh, you just need to have a relationship and we need to grow together because we can help each other." And I just remember that really spoke to me, that an older, wiser leader was telling me, "Hey, it's cool that you got all this stuff you got to do, but let me help you balance this.
Mm,
And it's important to have relationships." So
yeah. What
thank you,
work?
Walter.
Walter, thank you, because I have to work with him, so it's great. But no, it is funny because Derek and I are wired very similarly, and it is interesting that one of the phrases that was always told me is relationship over task. And so often I'm a planner. I know how to build strategies. I know how to do things, but you gotta, it takes people to work with them. So you can't sacrifice one for the other. So good word from Walter to spoken to my life too. Not that I know Walter, but the Walter in my life, relationship over task.
Okay, this next question is kind of a statement.
Okay.
So let me read this, Steve, and you just take this in and get your answer ready. It says, "Starting healthy. I am from a church plant and want to establish firm foundations as we look to continue the process of growing more into the likeness of Christ in community. Help."
Okay. So church planter person, feel your pain. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is you've got to build the weekend. If the weekend isn't built, there's nothing to assimilate. And that's the beautiful thing about small groups. They can work in tandem with you. I think it's going to be important for you to know how the systems of your church can work with the strategy and the small group structure. We have a course at the smallgroupnetwork.com called Align. It's something I wish I would have watched 40 years ago because it has saved me so much time. But bottom line is what I would encourage you to do is understand the systems of your church, that they tend to build off three groupings of people: the weekend, small groups, and serving God with where you're gifted. How those groupings of people outside the weekend message, the groupings of people that are serving God with where they're gifted, and the groupings of people that are trying to work on discipleship and mobilizing people to serve, you have to understand how they work with each other, how the weekends work with helping people get into groups and getting into serving. What we call Saddleback now, groups and teams. We want everyone to have a group or a team. When Rick was the senior pastor of the church at Saddleback, he would say a relationship and a responsibility. So just be thinking in your church planting how you can always move people into a group or into a team that are serving with where they're gifted. Another part of that is while you're building the weekend, be looking for a volunteer who's passionate about community, passionate about groups, that you can dub them as a volunteer small group point person. The one thing that we created the small group network for was to make sure we gave the tools and the resources to help a volunteer run an effective small group ministry. As your church grows, maybe you can hire someone to do that. But one of the things you always got to do is focus on volunteers that are passionate about that. People in our small group who've been with us for decades just moved out of state, and they stumbled onto a church plant, and they just, on our call with them, we do a Zoom call with them frequently. And they were just saying, hey, just checking in. You'll never guess what we're doing. And they're now the volunteer small group point people at this church plant. So they're having the time of their life, and they're doing it. So I'd encourage you with that. The other thing I would say is that during a church plan, don't overcomplicate it. So much of how a small group ministry is held together is through relationship. There's many things you can add to it, which, like I said, the Align course can help you with. We have other courses that can help with that too. But the thing I would just say is just don't overcomplicate it. It is about relationships. And so the more you're staying in touch with those small group leaders, it may not be perfect. You may not have all the infrastructure set up. We can help you with that. But at the same time too, it doesn't have to be overcomplicated with a bunch of people. It's just a matter of, getting someone who's helping be the point that can help answer group questions and help move them in the direction that they need to. So kind of just to sum it up, know your systems of your church, because the systems will be with the fabric that holds you together.
I think you said all that could be said there for number 6. So I guess the one thing I might add is, if you're at a church plant, look at the exciting good part is that you've got a kind of a blank canvas.
That's true.
And so obviously, work with your senior leadership, but man, you get to start from scratch. You don't have to build on top of something somebody else did, or maybe put up with all the tradition and history of like another church would. Just go for it and make discipleship and community fun.
Yeah, it's a good word. Good word.
Okay, number 7. What percentage of regular worshipers being in small groups is typical?
Common question. First off, I'd say, what are you satisfied with? Because everything is going to stem off of where you're going with it. I would say part of the important thing is to have a big goal, vision that you're going after, but at the same time, have a realistic goal that you're doing. And so I guess the analogy and the story I would give with this, when I first came on at Saddleback, one of our goals was to get 110% of the people connected into a small group. Thanks to COVID, I have a new goal that's working with that. So, we're trying to build that all back up. But that was our big time goal that we were trying to move towards. Now, at that time, when we wrote that statement, we had about 30% of people connected. And so this is where I would want you to spend most of your time focusing on, year over year, how do you get more people connected? So our short-term goal is, how do we move from 30% to 35%? Which was, I was new on staff at Saddleback at the time, at the beginning of 98. And so there was we're just trying to get my feet under me. And so that was a big goal for us, to move from 30 to 35. But we led with, this is where we want to get to. We want to get 110% of people connected in a group. Basically, people are reaching outside the walls of our church, pulling people into community. So it's one of those important pieces to be able to say, if you're only satisfied with 30%, or you say someone tells you 50% is the ideal number, and you go, great, that's all I'm going to do. I would pray and say, what do you want? How satisfied do you want to be? And then pair it up, realistic goals to get you to where you want to go.
Well stated. Well, we made it through the first 7 small group bag questions. Steve, how you feeling? How's your heart rate doing?
Good questions. Good questions with everybody, but may need to take a break and let our listeners, digest all that, and you look at the show notes and get some of the good stuff that we put in there.
Yeah, we're probably going to break these up. So check the show notes to see these questions listed. They might also have a link to the lobby gathering. And we hope you guys are enjoying these episodes.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And to dive in deeper, get more resources, or join the Small Group Network, just head over to smallgroupnetwork.com.